The next person we're going to talk with, he's just an all-around fantastic guy. I think I can say that about most of the people in here, but I've gotten to know Mike for a couple of years now. And what he does with his marketing is very interesting, which is fun. I think he brings a lot of joy to the process, and he actually likes doing it, which is a component to actually getting it done, is to find fun opportunities in your marketing, not being so self-serious all the time. So I'm really excited for him to share with you the formula of how he has been doing content in a really incredible way. Big round of applause for Michael Monteforte.
Thanks, buddy. Okay, so hopefully I'll find a way to not screw this up. So again, my name's Mike. I am an estate planning and elder law attorney. I have a practice a couple of miles north of Boston. If you guys are like me, and you've been furiously taking notes today and have pages and pages and pages of notes, if you were to listen to my kids and probably my wife and my staff too, this would be a good chance to rest, because nothing I have ever said is worth even listening to, let alone writing down, okay? So take the time to give your hand a break. If I can get this thing to work, let's see. So that is a picture of my grandparents. It is from my wedding, which is just a little bit over 19 years ago now. And they are the reason that I got into estate planning and elder law. It was never my intention. When I first started out, I was doing a little bit of everything. I opened my own firm back in 2006. I was doing a lot of real estate work, business stuff, whatever came in the door. Anybody that showed up, I pretended I knew how to do exactly whatever it was they were asking for, and when they left, I'd furiously go to the books and try and figure out how the hell to do what it is that they were hiring me to do. And after I'd been going at it for a number of years, it got to the point where my grandparents needed to go into assisted living. My grandfather was starting to show some signs of dementia. He was starting to become a little bit more than my grandmother could handle on her own. And so the family kind of got together and decided that they were going to move into a facility where they had a little bit more help and support. I am the only lawyer in my family, so they were all looking at me and saying, well, what do we do? And I said, how the hell should I know? I don't know what we're supposed to do. And they said, well, so my grandparents, we called them Nanny and Papa. They said, Nanny and Papa, have worked their whole lives. They paid off their house. Papa worked 3 or 4 jobs when his kids were growing up. And, they've amassed some savings over their lifetimes, and they don't want to see those savings disappear. Is there some way that we can help them? Because up in Massachusetts where I live, these facilities cost $13,000, $14,000, $15,000 a month. Easy. And so at the time I said, well, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to find out. And from that point on, I dove headfirst into estate planning and elder law. I took every class I could. I read every book that I could. I went to every continuing education that was available to try and figure out, how the hell to do this, and was there some way I could help them to save at least some of their life savings and what they've amassed over their entire lives. And after I learned how to do it, I realized, number one, that I enjoyed the work, and I also realized that there is a need for it, that there are a lot of people that were in the same position that my grandparents were, not really knowing what to do and needing some guidance. So at that point, I decided I was going to cut all the other areas out of my practice and focus exclusively on estate planning and elder law. It was a tough move because I was figuring out, is there really money to be made at this in a way that I can focus exclusively on that and run a practice. But as I got into it more and more and got to become known around my community as kind of the guy for this kind of stuff, I realized that it was going to work. And they have both since passed on, so they are not with us anymore, but when I look around my office, I see tons of things that they would just stop by and randomly give me, on a Friday. They just show up at the door and say, "Here, here's something for your desk, and here's something that you might want in the kitchen at your office, and we thought you might like this nameplate," and things like that. So I have reminders of them everywhere I go that I see every day, and I look at it like, well, even though they're not here, if the work I'm doing is making them proud, then it's important, and I feel good about it. So this next slide, and I can take no credit whatsoever for the PowerPoint. Nicole, my chief marketing officer, who's on the far right there, made the slides. I gave her a very crappy outline of what I was going to talk about, and she put it together and made it nice. So where we are now versus when I first started, when I first got into the estate and elder law stuff, it was just me and the one to my immediate left, Jen. It was she and I in a very small little office, typing letters and answering phones and doing everything basically ourselves. But since that time, 5 or 6 years ago now, we've grown to the point where I'm still the only attorney, but I've got 4 on staff, and we're busier than ever. So it's a good thing, but the reason there are 4 people standing around me in that picture is because of what happened to me in this room. As Ben said earlier, the right conference at the right time can change your life. And that's exactly what happened to me when I found GLM. It was a random thing. I had ordered one of Ben's books on Amazon and got into their email sequence and started reading some of their reports. And it was a little over 2 years ago, and it was shortly before the summit that year. And I said to my wife, "Hey, you know what? I need to take a business trip down to DC area to give this a look." And she said, you've been practicing for 10, 11, 12 years. You've never taken a business trip before in your life, but okay, if you think it's going to be helpful, go ahead. And I said, all right, I'm going to give this a fair shake. And so I came to that first summit. So this is my 3rd event here, and my mind was blown just right away from the things that they were teaching, and I was scribbling notes like crazy, and came home with a gigantic to-do list, everything from getting a written newsletter done and trying somehow to figure out if I had enough knowledge in my head to write a book that anybody would ever give a shit about and want to read. And the third thing that I brought home from that very first summit was that, we had to get rid of my crappy website and turn it into something nice. So I met Tom Foster and the other awesome folks at Foster Web Marketing. I realized that I should have had a little bit of a deeper conversation with him before this event because he already told you all my shit when he was up here earlier. So some of the stuff that I have to say, you're going to have already heard from him a little bit already. But we were doing our monthly calls and looking at ways to drive web traffic, and it was completely random that we were talking about Game of Thrones, and I'm going to give Tom credit for the idea, and he was saying, why don't you write something about this? That one of the main characters, Jon Snow, couldn't you use that somehow and talk a little bit about estate planning and maybe some tips that you would give to him to handle his estate? And I said, you know what, that's a pretty good idea. I think I could do that. And so I did not actually take a screenshot of the post, because if you look at that post compared to the post that we're doing now, it's garbage. But at the time, I was still doing it myself. I did the writing myself. I was grabbing the pictures myself, putting it all on there. It was during the last season of Game of Thrones. It was shortly before the finale. So I made a bunch of predictions in the blog post. I was wrong about every single one of them. Everything that I said that I thought was going to happen on the show did not happen. So I completely botched it and screwed it up. But for whatever reason, that post took off. And, we emailed it out to our list, and, folks on our list forwarded it to people that they knew. Hey, you're a Game of Thrones fan, check this out. And I can attribute at least 4 clients to that post that we signed directly from reading that post. And there were probably others too that maybe got into our pipeline from that post and took a little longer to actually get to the point where they were hiring us, but got into our pipeline because of that post. And I said, okay, that's a pretty cool idea. And, was it a one-time thing? Was it lightning in a bottle? Or was it something that I could take and turn into something a little bit bigger? And I was talking to my wife about it one day, and I was talking to my daughter. So I have 2 kids, a daughter that's 16 and a son that's 15. Thanks to Sean Buck, I know that I'm not going to look at any flyers that Target might send to my daughter because I don't want to know what she's buying. Well, anyway, she has aspirations of maybe becoming a lawyer, and I talk about, maybe taking her to some of these events when she's a little bit older. But she said, Dad, I might want to be a lawyer, but I don't think I want to do what you do. And I said, why not? And she said, because what you do is boring. And so I said, that's great, Gabby, thanks. And then I say, well, by the way, what I do pays for, that car that you're learning to drive in and all your dance lessons and dance shoes and all that. And her response was, yeah, but it's still boring. So anyway, I am maybe not going to get another estate planner out of her, but, she did tell me in her 16-year-old eyes that there is nothing exciting about estate planning and wills and trusts and elder law. And even though I find the work very interesting, and other lawyers might, most of the people on our list only want to hear about it for a short time when they need it, and that's it. And there's nothing exciting or interesting really about it. And so I took that idea that Tom had and said, okay, can I run with this? Because people looked at that Game of Thrones post, interested in the show. They didn't care about the estate planning, but I wrote it up in a funny way and used that as a page to lead into some of our more serious stuff. So we started getting a little bit more into it, looking for other, types of posts and things that we could do. So here's kind of a small collage that Nicole made about some of the ones that we've done recently. So we've done a lot on Britney Spears, okay, because she's been in the news for guardianship and conservatorship and not being able to make her own decisions about her money. And because it keeps happening, she's been constant fodder for us to draft these posts and talk about her estate planning. We get into everything from the celebrities to some of the fictional stuff, TV shows, Marvel characters, things like that. So in the upper right is the TV show The Office, and we wrote a blog about estate planning advice that we would give to our favorite characters on The Office. And I'll give you a little secret here, okay? It's the same goddamn estate planning advice for every single one of these, okay? Nothing is changing, you know what I mean? Oh, this guy needs a will, this one needs a trust. It's the same stuff, okay? We're just applying it to these different characters and celebrities as a way to make it interesting. Again, I'm trying to think about, is there something I could write so that my daughter would want to read it and not insist on calling me boring? Okay. After that, you can see that's the Star Wars show, The Mandalorian. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to find things that are in the news that are kind of happening right now and try and catch onto the fact that these things are trending on social media or they're in the news a lot, and time our stuff to work when the media, letting them do a little bit of our work for us. So when Star Wars came out with this spin-off show, The Mandalorian, I said, okay, my son and I are Star Wars fans, let's write a Star Wars blog. We did that, we pushed it out there. At least 2 clients that I know of came from that. And then as the way that we kind of make these evergreen is as this stuff starts to pop up more and more with sequels and spin-offs and things like that, we write a new post, we refer to the old post, and it's a way for us to, again, capitalize on the fact that these things are back in the news. We did a post about Kobe Bryant, and then below that, Chadwick Boseman, who was the Black Panther. So using these fictional characters, and again, providing our, sometimes we talk about estate planning for our fictional characters, but sometimes we talk about celebs and their screwed up estates, okay? Just like people like to read about dumb criminal stories, well, there are dumb celebrity stories as well. And there are lots of really screwed up estates out there from these people that have millions and millions of dollars. So Kobe Bryant, his estate is still going on. It's pretty crazy. We did a post about Prince. Years later, they're still fighting over his estate and the rights to his music and his songs. But every time one of these things pops back up into the news, we find a way to repurpose our old content. For example, we did our post about Chadwick Boseman when he first passed away. Now we just found out within this past week that he didn't have a will. So, and that was not news that we knew before. We just found out, so I wrote a new post, we haven't put it up yet, about, here's living proof about why you need to have a will. Even these guys, he had a 4-year-long battle with cancer, but still didn't do his estate planning. I mean, he did some trust, but he didn't do a basic will, and now his wife needs to go to the probate court to get her hands on any of their money. So we use that. You can see the Marvel Avengers down the bottom. We've done numerous posts about that. Again, the fictional characters. When Tony Stark, Iron Man, passed away in the most recent movie, and that's hopefully not a spoiler for any of you, we talked about estate planning that he may have wanted to do for his daughter before he passed. So, and I think, Tom, I think it was in our last call that you said to me, Mike, whenever somebody dies, I think of you. And I said, oh, geez, that's great. I'm like, I'm the grim reaper of estate planning. Thanks, thanks so much for that. I appreciate it. So this next one is about Tiger King. And so if you can see that kind of peak in the numbers there, that was right in the midst of quarantine in Massachusetts when they shut everything down. And you couldn't stop hearing about Tiger King on Netflix. Everybody was talking about it, and I said, all right. I watched the series, me and my kids and my wife, and I said, there's got to be a way that we can write something about, these whack jobs that were in this thing, and so there's the Tiger King himself up there. We wrote a little bit about Carol Baskin, who I still think killed her husband and fed him to the tigers. You're not going to be able to convince me otherwise. So when that show was big, this post was coming up in organic search, especially during the height of quarantine, and so we got a ton of page views from it. And we use those pages to push people from the fun stuff into our more serious stuff and get them on our list. So this next one was about Grey's Anatomy. Now, if you Tom's laughing because he knows I hate Grey's Anatomy. I hate it, all right? My daughter loves it. My wife loves it. They watch it religiously. And Nicole from my office came in and said, Mike, we have to write a post about Grey's Anatomy. I was watching it last night, and someone passed away, and they didn't have estate planning. And I'm saying to her, Nicole, I hate Grey's Anatomy. I don't want to do it. And she said, you have to, it's popular. And, since I pretty much do whatever she tells me to do, I said, okay. And so I wrote the post, and I was clear in the post that I hate the show, all right? And I was clear in the post that she made me do it. Well, anyway, it was a good thing that I listened to her, because this post took off, maybe not quite as much as that original Game of Thrones, but close. We got a ton of page views from it. It was, a lot of the searches weren't organic on this one. It was through our social media. That's another big thing that we do, is when we're putting one of these posts out, we make sure that everything is working together. So we don't just put the post up and leave it alone and say, wow, we made a nice post. We have to make sure that the post leads you from the fun stuff and the tongue-in-cheek stuff into the serious stuff. So yeah, okay, you just read about the Tiger King's estate planning, but download our report or request a free copy of our book, do it here. So writing a nice post just to write a nice post isn't going to get you anywhere. It has to lead them into our website to the point where they become a lead, where they have to enter their email address to get one of our reports or get the book, and then they're in our pipeline. And once they're in our pipeline, they start getting our follow-up sequences, our email blasts, and that's where the conversions happen. This post here that was one that we wrote about the 80s band The Cars and Rick Ocasek, his estate when he passed away. And this one always seems to be popular. So, you could see clearly in Tiger King that it went up when Tiger King was big and then dipped down after that. This one, for whatever reason, now Rick Ocasek's estate is still in the news. This one has remained popular since the time that we put it up. So we still continue to post it, and it always does well for us. The other thing that we did is we created some incentives for our employees, because it got to the point where, I enjoy writing this stuff, but I don't have time to write all of it all the time, and I don't have time to look for these stories all the time. So we started putting some incentives in for the staff, saying, okay, if you go out there and you find a news story or a celebrity or a TV show, something that we use and can put into a blog, then you're going to get a bonus for it. So as a way to encourage them to get involved. The other thing is I tell them that they'll get an additional bonus if they write the post. And so if you look at the posts on our website, not all of the posts are written by me. I'll go in and add the legal stuff, but it's written in the voice of whoever found that article. It's Nicole a lot of the time. And she'll write the post, and then she'll say, Mike says, A, B, and C about their estate planning, but then she goes on and is witty and funny, and everybody likes it. At the same time, she adds all the pictures and memes and, moving graphics and things like that to make it pretty and make it interesting. And I've added my little boring part, and that's the end of it. So this is all right. So this is what I have to deal with every day, okay? They just couldn't stand that, there was going to be a picture of me up there, and they couldn't just leave it alone. I have no hair, I'm sorry. And, no, they had to put a crown on my head. So it's something that, we enjoy doing. I'm trying to get the whole office involved with finding these stories, writing these stories, so that all of this stuff doesn't have to sound just like me and come from me. We get everybody involved. We have fun with it, sarcastic, jokey, tongue-in-cheek stuff. We use that to push them into our pipeline and into the serious stuff, where then we're hitting them with our follow-up sequences through our CRM, and that's where the conversions happen. So all these posts are still on the site. We just did one about Eddie Van Halen. Nicole wrote that one too. It's pretty cool. And they're talking about doing a Game of Thrones spin-off show on HBO. So I have a post in the can. It hasn't gone up yet about that, where we're going to try and recapture some of the original post that got everything started with the Game of Thrones stuff. So if anybody's interested, you can certainly reach out to me. You can ask for me or Nicole. Look at our website, find any of these posts. I can give you links to any of them. Steve, go ahead.
Mike, since you started the pop culture blogs, how much did this grow? Obviously, you get a lot of feedback, and you got a CRM. From beginning to now, how much has it grown?
I got to tell you, we are, in the last year, we've doubled in our list size over the last 12 months. I don't know whether, I want to say even in the midst of COVID, but COVID probably actually helped us, especially with the Tiger King stuff, because people are home watching TV. I've got 3 times what I had when Tom suggested the idea to me first. And so we are, I'd say 3 times what we were back then, but we've doubled in the past year alone. Like I said, maybe with a little help from COVID and everybody watching Netflix.
And how much do you pay your staff on bonuses?
It's short money. It's short money. I give them $25 for any article that they find that that we use. I give them another $25 if they want to write it. So it's well worth it, because it saves me a ton of time from having to search out this stuff. So All right, everybody, thank you so much. I appreciate it.